You're tuned into That's Life, where we celebrate the beauty, the chaos, and the wonder of real life. Sometimes it makes you laugh, sometimes it makes you cry, but it always makes you feel. Settle in. We're just getting started. Mary hurried to work, her breath catching from the fast walk. Today was marked on the calendar as the day for the mandatory medical checkup. She absolutely had to see all the doctors before the start of her shift. Otherwise, the prospect of staying until late evening hung over her like an unpleasant threat. Mary worked as a nurse within the hospital walls and sincerely loved her job. The only thing that clouded her attitude toward work was the constantly changing duty schedules. Every time she was put on an unplanned shift, she couldn't help but grumble. In response, her colleagues, as if by prior agreement, would repeat the same thing. Well, why are you sighing? You're the only one here without children, and the extra money won't hurt you. We all have kids, families. I have a husband too, Mary retorted, though her voice sounded more like a complaint. However, her husband Roman was completely untroubled by his wife's evening or night shifts. Mary, don't worry about me. Can I heat up my own dinner? Or do I need a nanny to put me to bed? I'm not a child after all. And so it happened that Mary, more often than others, was assigned night and 24-hour shifts. That day, the young woman managed to see almost all the specialists before the start of the workday. The last one remaining was the gynecologist. Mary was already buttoning her coat, preparing to leave the office, when the doctor's words reached her. Development is normal. I think there's no cause for concern. I only advise you to hurry and register. Time has already been lost. Your age isn't so young that you should risk it. Mary froze. The meaning of the doctor's words escaped her. What do you mean? What development? Development of what? Do I have problems? Am I sick? Why do I need to register? Mary asked, agitated, interrupting herself. The gynecologist smiled. My dear, pregnancy is not a sickness. Can you call it a problem? And you must register so the doctor can monitor you. You're already 35, which is quite old for a first birth. I'll write you a certificate. Take it to your local doctor. I'm pregnant? Mary whispered, her eyes wide. The doctor began to show signs of impatience. You didn't know? Look, madam, I have a lot more work to do. I've explained everything. Proceed on your own. All questions to your doctor. Goodbye. Mary automatically took the certificate, left the office, and shuffled down the corridor. Thoughts swarmed in her head like a disturbed hive. Pregnant? Impossible. They had lost all hope so long ago. So many years of trying without result. And now this news, like a blow, knocked her out of her usual routine. Yes, she had noticed that her work uniform had become a little tight, but she put it down to increase appetite. She thought she had just put on a little weight. Fine, that's explainable. But why the sudden strong craving for food? Could it be because of the pregnancy? And also, she had completely forgotten about her period. When was the last time? Her memory failed her. My God, she was pregnant. She needed to make sure immediately. Mary hurried to the nurse's station. There on the sofa sat her friend Stacy, engrossed in her phone. Oh, Mary, you're back? What's wrong? You look awful, pale as a ghost. Did something happen? Stacy asked, looking up from the screen. Mary just shook her head. but then blurted out, "Stacy, do you happen to have a pregnancy test?" Stacy was known at the hospital as being quite flighty. She easily started romances not only outside the hospital, but right within its walls. Feelings sometimes overtook her at the most inconvenient moments, and the girl didn't always worry about contraception. Therefore, she always had pregnancy tests handy at work. "Of course. You even ask?" Stacy replied briskly, rummaging in her drawer. She pulled out a couple and handed them to Mary. "You know how to use them, I hope?" Stacy winked. But Mary wasn't in the mood for jokes. With a perfectly serious expression, she took both tests, grabbed an empty sample jar from the table, and headed for the restroom. A few minutes later, Mary stood in the cramped restroom stall, clutching two plastic rectangles. Both tests showed positive results. She looked from one to the other. 2 lines, and again 2 lines. Bright, clear, leaving no room for doubt. She was really pregnant. And it happened just now, when she had finally let go of the situation and resigned herself to the thought of being childless. Mary couldn't work that day. She wrote a leave request for personal reasons, citing sudden indisposition. She urgently needed to go home to share this amazing news with her husband. On the bus, which seemed to crawl, Mary thought, why is it going so slowly? As if the whole world was conspiring against her. Finally, she reached home. Entering the apartment, she took out the test. With a smile on her face, clutching the cherished strip in her hand, she stepped into the living room and froze, as if struck by lightning. On their new sofa, covered with a blanket, sat an unfamiliar young woman. And Roman, red-faced and flustered, was hastily pulling on his trousers. He clearly hadn't expected his wife to find him in such a delicate situation. What's going on here? Mary barely breathed out. Nothing serious is happening, Roman replied in a muffled voice. The young woman just blinked silently, pale with fear. Who knew what madness her lover's lawful wife might think of? What if she decided to pull her hair? Mary was still clutching the test in her hand. She realized that her life had just taken a sharp, sudden turn. The ground had disappeared from under her feet. Her breath caught. Nausea rose. Roman took her by the elbow and led her to the kitchen. Turning back, he quietly said to the young woman, "Get dressed quickly." Mary automatically went into the kitchen and stopped, staring at the bottle of wine and 2 glasses left on the table. "Why did you come home so early?" her husband asked, annoyed. Mary gave him a bewildered look. "I felt sick, nauseous. I took the day off," she stammered. Roman grunted and ruffled his hair. "You could have at least called, warned me you were coming home." Mary frowned. "I have to call and warn you that I'm coming to my own home. Why? So you can hide your mistress? Are you out of your mind? What's going on, Roman? What's wrong? Do you not love me anymore?" Roman avoided her gaze. "No, I just relaxed a bit. And don't you dare raise your voice at me. Don't make a scene." Roman looked out into the hallway. The front door slammed shut. The mistress had left. "Roman, don't make a scene in front of whom? Your mistress? I can shout as much as I think is necessary. You have no right to shut me up." Roman flared up. "You know, I think I'll leave for now. I'll come back when you calm down. You're making a fuss over nothing. So what if I went astray a couple of times? So what? I'm not leaving you. I live with you. That means I'm satisfied with everything and there's nothing to discuss. That's it. I'm leaving. We'll talk later when you can take things calmly. And while I'm gone, think about your behavior. Maybe you'll realize what you're doing wrong that forced me to get a mistress. And she, by the way, doesn't throw tantrums at me because I have a wife, although she could. She just enjoys herself. I advise you to reflect on that. And Roman left. A couple of minutes later, the front door slammed again. Mary stood in the kitchen, not moving. She clenched her fists. Something was digging painfully into her left palm. It was the pregnancy test. It was still clutched in her hand. Roman hadn't even asked what it was. He hadn't even noticed it. Mary started to cry. Half an hour later, Mary made a final decision. She no longer wanted to live with this man. He had betrayed her, and apparently, she wasn't as necessary to him as she had wanted to believe. Staying home was unbearable, and she went back to the hospital. Stacy was there. Perhaps her friend could distract her from this pain somehow. Stacy immediately knew from Mary's appearance that something was wrong. Mary, why are you back? You were sick. What happened? Stacy asked. Mary couldn't hold back and burst into tears again. She told her friend everything that had happened. Stacy listened carefully, then sighed heavily. Well, friend, you've had quite a day. To get the best and worst news at the same time is no joke. I see your husband doesn't really want a child. Maybe you terminate the pregnancy? Mary shook her head negatively. What are you saying? No, I would never do that. I've dreamed of a child so much and I won't give him up. This is my miracle. I'll file for divorce. I've already decided. I just need to leave Roman. Move into my own apartment. How to do it? I don't know. If I go back home, he'll either try to persuade me or make a scene. Pregnant? I won't be able to handle that pressure. He might convince me to stay, and I don't want to. I can't live with him after everything he's done. Mary covered her face with her hands and cried. Stacy thought for a moment, biting her lip thoughtfully and closing her eyes. Suddenly she perked up. Listen, let me help you. Or rather, not me, but Jimmy. It's simple. Jimmy was Stacy's brother. A good guy, cheerful, easygoing. He had divorced several years ago. His wife cheated on him, and James found out. When Mary met him, James had just gone through the divorce. She often saw him. He constantly visited his sister, and Mary liked talking to him. He was so smart, attentive. One day Stacy told her, listen, I think Jimmy has a crush on you. He comes to the hospital too often for no reason, as if he wants to see you. Don't make things up, Stacy. What nonsense. I'm married. He doesn't look at me like that. You're just imagining things, Mary replied. Now, Mary thought that James was the only one who could really help. Tomorrow, Roman is at work from morning till evening. Mary and Stacy have the day off. This is the perfect plan. They'll have time to pack and move things to Mary's apartment. How good it was that she didn't rent it out after the last tenants. How conveniently everything is working out. Mary agreed. Stacy called her brother, and they arranged everything. Mary went to Stacy's place to spend the night after her shift ended. Her husband called her all evening and all night, but Mary didn't answer the phone. The next day, James was at his sister's by 7 in the morning. Are you crazy? Why are you here so early? I'm not even up yet, Stacy exclaimed. But Mary was already awake. While Stacy allowed herself another half an hour of sleep, Mary made breakfast for James and fed him. She didn't tell James anything about her problems with her husband, but it was clear from his face that he was eager to know the details. However, he didn't ask questions. He just said, "Mary, you can always count on me. I'm very sorry you're unhappy, and your husband turned out to be such a jerk. I move mountains for a woman like you, and I do everything to make her the happiest woman in the world. I would never trade you for anyone else." Mary just nodded, but her heart felt warm and light from his sincere words. She noticed that when she accidentally touched his hand, handing him a plate of pancakes, his palm trembled slightly. Could Stacy have been telling the truth, and James really liked Mary? No. These were just silly thoughts. They moved Mary's things to her apartment, and it was instantly easier to breathe. Stacy was in a hurry for a date with another suitor, and soon left, leaving James and Mary alone. "You can go too. I can manage myself." "Thank you so much," Mary said. But James just rolled up his sleeves and replied, "I'm not leaving until we're finished. You shouldn't lift heavy things. I'll help." So, Stacy had told James about the pregnancy after all. Well, everyone will find out sooner or later anyway. Together, they finished quickly. James helped her a lot. He carefully offered her his hand when she got on or off a chair. He moved furniture so Mary could wash the floors. He fixed the toilet and washed the windows where Mary couldn't reach. Mary looked at him and thought, why wasn't Roman like this? He never helped his wife like this, essentially stranger. When everything was finished, Mary said, "Thank you, Jimmy. You're a very good person. Your future wife will be lucky. I myself wish I had a husband just like you." James smiled. "So what's stopping you?" "I personally don't mind. Get your divorce sorted out quickly, and I'll propose to you. Will you marry me, Mary?" Mary was speechless. What kind of joke was this? Not knowing what to say, she decided to play along. "James, I'm very flattered, but it's impossible. I'm pregnant with another man's child. What man would want to raise someone else's child? And I'm not going to get rid of it. So, I'm sorry, but I can't." James looked her seriously in the eyes. "But I'm not just any man, Mary. I'll treat your child as my own. Don't compare me to others. I've admired you for a very long time. And now that you're leaving your husband, nothing will stop me from winning you over. You won't get rid of me so easily now. I'll go, but I'll be back tomorrow. You need the wardrobe fixed. I'll come with tools." And he left. And Mary sat in the kitchen for a long time, not believing her ears. Mary stepped out onto the building steps, squinting in the bright sun. In her hands, she held a huge bouquet of flowers. Next to her stood her husband. Jimmy held a baby in his arms and beamed from ear to ear. And Mary smiled. Stacy ran up to them. She was with her companion, who was soon to become her husband. Finally, Stacy had found her happiness too. Stacy squealed with delight, looking at Mary and her son. "Oh, he's such a cutie. Honestly, he's so handsome." Mary didn't answer. She simply basked in the glow of that happy moment. Who would have thought that by divorcing Roman, she would find true happiness? She married Stacy's brother. He carried her in his arms, doted on her, and he accepted the child as his own. "This is our son, Mary. This is my son. I won't give you up to anyone. Remember that?" he told her, gently stroking her rounded belly in the last month of pregnancy. Mary was absolutely happy. She didn't think about her ex-husband, just as he didn't think about her. His fate didn't interest her at all. Only one thing was important: her new family, her beloved, precious husband Jimmy, and their little son Leo. True love exists. Now Mary knew it for sure.